All right, loyal listeners. Here we are again, once again, with the executive sessions of Agency Intelligence. As you know, we've been traveling all across America trying to do some live one-on-ones, just not with tech companies, but I don't know how these roll out, but majority of them have been done already with tech companies. But I think that they're instrumental. Now, Ryan, one of the things that I like to do with the executive sessions is I usually give them about 10 questions. 2 or 3 of them have to do with the industry, and the other 7 having to do with them and to humanize them. That's what I'm really trying to do, is humanize executives, right? Because we get this big thing. I think people know you and you're very humanized to them because we're very involved, but sometimes the executives aren't. Yeah. And I believe that as you become more successful, you'll probably be removed more from the ground. It's just because you have to strategize, and as business gets bigger, it requires more responsibility.
Yeah, your role changes. And I think, one of the most important things that I've learned in leadership having experienced the very bottom of the rung and being at the top at different times, even in of my own companies, is that as leaders, we have to be very humble and aware of what our current role is in the season that we're in our business. So what it means to be a leader in an organization has seasons, and those seasons change as your business grows, as it reaches new maturity levels.
Very well said.
I think where, and there's not enough people talk about this topic, and I think that's because it's kind of hard to bake into like a easy framework or structure, right? There's not like a PDF version of how you figure out where you are. Like, you really have to be introspective. You have to ask the right questions and really have an awareness for what value you bring in that moment. So, I think what that looks like is day one, you're everything that you have to do, right? It's, if you got to make a sales call, you got to make a sales call. You need to put marketing copy together, you got to do that. You got to put something in the mail and put a stamp on it, you got to do that, right? That's where you are. And then as you go, right, you may become the organization's best salesperson. So you're crushing it at sales and you backfilled some other stuff. This happens a lot in our industry, right? The owners, right? They're the best salesperson. And again, this is where the seasons part comes in. And I think it's part of how I was able to grow Rogue as fast as I was, as I don't have an affinity to being an independent insurance agent. Like, I've never self-defined as an agent.
Interesting.
I'm an insurance professional, right? I've held many different roles. I love this industry, and I've approached it from a lot of different angles. So like, I don't need to show up every day and self-identify as an independent agent, even though I've had my license for more than 20 years. Right? Like, to me, it's about an insurance business. So there became a moment that even though I was the organization's #1 salesperson, I had to move on from that role because there was a new season from the business. We had to scale culture, we had to scale people, we had to put systems and processes in place, and none of that would have been possible if I was stuck on the #1 producer season.
Amen.
So
you're right about that.
It's just that awareness that really allows you to morph and change, and as you said, your how you present yourself to the market often changes and morphs as you grow through that as well.
So do you think that some of your underlying strengths, I know you're a thinker, you probably thought of this, like one of your underlying strengths is that you've been around to multiple organizations, small, large, corporate, mom and pop. And I think a lot of people may say, well, I respect the fact that I've been at 1 or 2 jobs my whole life. I think there's awesome with it, right? That's not even me. But I think that something people don't overlook is like, sometimes it's like purebred people or purebred dogs, I know I'm using this as an example, are not sometimes as good as the people who are the mutts, right? The ones that have multiple backgrounds, the things that have brought multiple experiences into a situation. And when you've sat inside the same office and done the same thing your whole life, I think you have a great perspective. But I think there's something more that you bring to the table, because not only were you in insurance, but there was a time you were out of insurance. And today, I mean, even on your podcast and your content, people who are not in insurance are connecting with your message as much.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting point. I've always articulated it this way. I think that ego is one of the #1 blind spots that we have in our lives. And by that, I mean, like, again, how we self-identify, what our self-worth is, and ultimately, what status hierarchy are we prioritizing? So I actually have a TEDx talk that I'm doing in February on a topic similar to this, and it's so my brain is really here. I didn't expect you to go there, but it's where my brain is at. Is when I'm positioning this idea of status, think of it as like we become. I'm going to take this example of the best salesperson in my agency, right? So I'm the agency owner, but I'm also the best salesperson.
Okay.
And even though I feel like I've plateaued, I feel like the agency is struggling to get to the next level, I don't have enough time to put the systems in place or review the tech, all those things that maybe you and I have been talking about for a long time.
Yep.
Most of the pushback, and I know you've heard this, we've talked about it, is, well, Jason, I'm the number one producer. So if I stop producing, revenue goes down, etc. Okay.
Yep.
Now, that is a reason, right? That is a legitimate, honest reason. However, it is not what's really keeping you from getting to the next level, right? It's what that person's really saying is, Jason, I am unwilling to give up my status as the number one producer. I like the way that makes me feel. I like the authority that it provides. I like the fact that my agency needs me to produce because that makes me feel good about me and my status, okay?
So right on.
So how I was able to come to this is I don't give a shit what people think about me. I never have. And we've talked about this. It is not that I don't want you to like me. I did. I really did. But if you didn't, I would go on with my life and it wouldn't mean anything to me. And I've had people say to me, well, if you're willing to say that, then that means you do really care, and all nonsensical kind of circular arguments of stuff. But it ultimately comes back to this. I grew up in a small shithole town of 900 people. We would say you could keep your doors open in town because the criminals lived in our town. They didn't steal in our town. So growing up, no, that's real. That's real. My house when I was growing up, my stepdad was like renovating this old 1800s house, but like it was nice on the inside over time, but the outside looked like a crack house. Like the windows were misaligned and all this kind of stuff, because I'm filthy 1800s, right? So my friends, like from the nice parts of town, would call my house the crack house, right? And all I ever wanted to do was get out of that town. Like I can remember vividly at like 10, 11, 12 years old, looking around and being like, I want to get out of here so bad and never come back.
Wow.
Never come back. So I couldn't play a status game because I never had it. My nicknames in high school were Fat Boy and Nassau, the name of my town. My town was so shitty that just the name of it was a dick. Right? So like I never walked into a situation with that status that I could even create that as a value structure in my life.
Wow.
So getting back to your original point.
Wow.
What that has allowed me to do throughout my career is move from opportunity to project, to consulting engagement, to speaking engagement, to podcast topic, and be able to, in a very malleable and fluid way, move through all those different opportunities, gain all types of different experience and angles of thought because I simply don't care. Like I've had people go like, why would you started your own agency, you worked at Bold Penguin, Trusted Choice, you had all these jobs. Why would you go all the way back to a brand new startup, right? Like day start. It's like, it's fucking fun and it's what I want to do. And I like the challenge. And I feel that I've always felt, and you and I have talked about this, and I think you share this view, like this industry has given, I think, both of us lives that we could have never imagined. Never imagined.
Never.
I feel a sense of responsibility to the success of the humans in the insurance industry that it lives with me every day, right? Like I'm constantly trying to think in my head, like, how do I help people today? Right? And to be part of ushering in what I think is a responsible and valuable way, AI technology, like being part of the solution of giving it to this industry, that's why I did it. And I'm gonna fuck if you don't agree.
So, well, and even if they don't agree, you can also say, but if I did agree, I feel as if it's giving you skills and perspective and experience that other people just don't have. Yeah. And they just don't. In the time that you've had your positions you've had, I've had one. Now, I've created other companies, but I've had the same. It makes me wonder, like if I left and I went and worked for another company, like the different perspectives that I would have, right? Because all my perspectives are based on the experience that I have. So that's really good. And I just want to ask you, so how much counseling did you do to go through and get all this?
Tons. No, actually, it's a really good question. So I'm gonna give people feedback on it. So one, I want no, but I know it's a good no, I think this is an important topic. So one, I want to be clear. I do think that the way that I've approached my career, although not always ideal, right? There's been opportunities that did not work out the way that I would have liked them to, and that happens. That's life, right? I am willing to take on a lot of risk. I often envy people in your position. Like I would say to myself, like, what could I do if I was applying the amount of pressure that I apply on a day-to-day basis to the same thing for 20 years instead of 7 different things, right? If it wasn't like this opportunity, grow it to here, then something happens and come back, and then grow it to here, and then, you know, like if it was just, where would I be? And I do have a lot of envy. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I think that it's just kind of going back to the original statements, being aware of where you are. To the counseling piece, best piece of advice that I ever got in my entire life, was from a mentor of mine. I got it back in 2016 when I was traveling a Trust Choice the Con days, and I'm sitting with a guy that I know, and you know, he were just rapping life, and he says to me, he goes, "Look, I'm going to give you something that changed my life. Go find a counselor, not necessarily a therapist or whatever, someone you can talk to, is going to not judge you or want to put you on meds, but just someone you can just barf on every other week. Schedule a meeting with them every other week for the rest of your life, and just consider it a life expense."
That's right, brother.
That's what he said.
That's right.
And that's what I've done. So I've seen the same person for 6 years now, you know, helped me through my divorce, helped me through, you know, rogue risk and some of the stuff that went on with that, you know, just all these different things that have happened in my life where like I felt like I was this close to like that next level, and then kind of the rug gets pulled or something happens that I don't want, right? Like those are moments where you have the option of falling apart. And I'm willing to do anything to not fall apart.
Right. And you know, I love it. I love it. And I appreciate you opening up this way, because I bet you there's more people listening to this that feel this way than don't, right? I wanted to pivot to something that what you said, but I want to do that in a little bit later. Let's talk about Linqura. Yeah. Okay. It's my fault. I only messed it up because I've asked him 600 times, and now I'm second guessing myself. That's like, but tell me about this. Like, okay. All right. Before you go to Linqura, let me ask you this. How will AI most impact insurance? And I know there's a million questions and there's no one answer, but I want to hear it from you. What comes to the top of your mind, and then tell us about Linqura.
So there are only going to be 3 things left that humans do.
Okay.
Build relationships, solve problems, and sell things. Everything else is gone.
You promise?
Yeah. Everything else is going away.
Man.
And I don't have a timetable for that. It's inside of 10 years. It could be inside of 5 years. I don't think it'll be much quicker than that for a whole bunch of
Now, because of the technology or the adoption of people of that technology?
I think it's a whole pool of reasons. I think some of it is legacy tech, although from the perspective I sit in now, I do think a lot of the companies that we would complain about legacy tech, I do think they're making investments in the right places. So a lot of those people that maybe really bitch about 5 years ago, they seem to really, you know, new leadership, new direction.
Very important what you're saying.
Yeah, now they seem to be pushing in the right direction, which is a very good thing. But that's going to take time. And some of it is we've talked about this before on the show. Some of it is, because of these systems are so old, it just takes time to tear down the old code and put the new modern code in. It just simply takes time, and more time than we think. Okay.
That's right.
So I do think some of it is
very well said.
I think some of it is adoption just culturally. I think some of it is this is brand new and we just don't know all the ways to use it. And I also think there's just a time element to penetration into a market of a new technology. So I don't have a timetable. Inside of 10 years for sure. Could be 5, although if I had to bet, I'd say it was somewhere between 5 and 10 years is when we really start to see this. But what I'm seeing, so to give everyone just the background on me with Linqura, and we'll get into the AI piece, I started as a board member. So I met the founders, Mark and Ewing, during my rogue risk days. They had another insurtech that they were doing that was about data, third-party data injection. And we wanted to, because we're doing such high volume, information gathering was a major bottleneck for the business. We wanted to be able to inject some third-party data into our process earlier, so we didn't have to ask as many questions, so we could reduce the amount of time, et cetera. Okay. So that's how I met them. they sold that company. I exited from Rogue, and they kind of pitched me this idea and asked me to be a board member. So from
That's cool.
from December 2023 until October of 2024, I was a board member.
That's simply that.
And, I was doing some work for them a little bit and helping them. And I just kept getting sucked deeper and deeper in as I started to really get my hands around what they were building, one. But I also, as I said before, I felt this responsibility having lived through the 2015, 2016, 2017 InsurTech revolution that we both, both dealt with. So many of those were really good ideas that were implemented poorly or weren't implemented by someone who appreciated and respected the people of our industry.
That's right.
So I said to myself, okay, like, I have my side projects that I do, the podcast, working with Paradiso on a book. I just launched a course, Master of the Close.
Yes.
Which is really cool. But I said, AI is coming, and I would like to believe that I could be part of the good stewardship of bringing this technology to our space, right? Making sure agents don't get bait and switched. Like, this is real.
Wow.
We're here for the long run. We're doing it in the right ways,
like that.
right? Like, and I'll give you an example. So what initially turned me on to them in particular, and then I want to get back into the AI in general, was they did a year of zero rev development. And for anyone who's built a company that has to do with technology, building tech and not getting money coming in
Right.
is like punching yourself in the face every day.
It is.
But they did it because there is a necessity to AI in our space that many of the early movers have missed. And that is security and privacy, right? So the conversation that I'm hearing in every boardroom up and down the value chain has been, we know we need to do this. We're trying some things, but we're scared as hell about how 3 years from now, some bomb goes off, not literal bomb, of like my data surfaces in some website somewhere because I put it into this shared AI model. So what Linqura did was they built their technology in layers. This is going to be the non-nerdy version. So please, everyone watching at home, understand, a sales, marketing, leadership guy, not code guy. But essentially, think of it this way. I'm positive this is not how the code actually works, but visually. So think of the top layer as the AI functionality, Gen AI, machine learning. I didn't realize, dude, there's like a million different types of AI.
Agentic AI, there's all different
Yeah,
types.
this AI talks to this one, which talks to this one, does this does the calculation, brings it back here. Okay, I don't understand all that, but we have all. Okay, so we can do all that stuff. The bottom layer is what we call point of truth industry data. So we have this, we built a tool called Link Data, and our goal is to be the most accurate down market data that has ever existed for commercial insurance.
Okay.
So what does that actually look like? Half of it is the language. So think, what are the actual definitions of the things that we're talking about? Not like ChatGPT, which is guessing at the next best word. So if you guys are unfamiliar of how these different models work, what a ChatGPT will do, and is incredibly good at, I do not want to knock them. These guys are awesome at it. I use ChatGPT every day. But what they're doing is they've looked at all these different sentences, right? And they see that this word in this context comes next most often when this is. So they don't actually know the answer.
No.
They're just guessing at what the next best word is.
They call that tokens.
Yes.
They put those tokens together.
100%.
That's right.
Perfect. So what we've done, because in insurance, we can't have a miss, right? You can't mix up the definition of general liability and cyber liability. It can't happen.
Very true.
Right? That is something that cannot happen. So we have gathered just insane amount of what we call point of truth data. So that's AIS forms, court forms, ISO forms, all of Rough Notes, Producer Plus data.
It's not listening to what someone says about the Bible. It's actually reading.
Yeah, it's taking it from the stuff.
Taking it right
from the slide. Okay.
Gotcha.
So we know when you ask, how does cyber liability apply to a bakery in Iowa with 3 locations? We can answer that question with the exact language that should be.
Not a guess.
Yeah, not a guess. Okay. That's part of it. The other part of it is we have 40 plus million business records and up to 1,800 attributes per business.
Holy
So we know everything down to the business owner's emotional buying triggers if you were going to run ads at them. Like, do they buy off of scarcity? Do they buy off of fear? Do they buy off of whatever it is. Okay.
Woo.
So now, and we do that by bringing in data sources from not just one of the big guys, but multiple, as well as some smaller resources, a lot of public data. We're doing a whole bunch of things. And then we built our own web scraper. So we go out and we scraped all 40 million business records. So we know up to 6 NIST codes deep for every business that exists in America. And we're in testing right now to figure out, and I want to be able to say this, I can't say it for sure today. Our goal is to become the most accurate business classification tool that's ever existed.
And when you do, how does that benefit agents? Is that a new business thing? Is that a service thing? Is that a cross-selling thing?
It's both. So just from a classification standpoint, what this looks like is you get a new lead for a landscaper. Tells you a landscaper, gives you all the right information. You're like, I crush landscapers, let's go. You go to your favorite landscaper carrier, you submit the business, and all of a sudden you get a fact. And they go, we just looked at their Facebook page, and there's a guy on a bucket truck 40 feet up cutting a tree down with a chainsaw.
Right.
Misclassification. Now you got to back all the way out. Now you got to figure out where it goes.
That's right.
So just at the tip of the spear is understanding that this guy's highest risk NIST code is actually tree service. Yes, he is also a landscaper, and he does some excavation work, so that NIST code is on there as well. And now you are properly, once you can properly classify, now you can dig into carrier appetites. You can dig into risk profiles. You can dig down into, basically, what do I need to do to write this account? All the way through. So the goal of Linqura is to make every producer a specialist on every commercial account every time.
Wow.
Right?
So trying to go away from the niche and allowing, almost developing their niche, but if someone wanted to be a generalist, you're going to be the best generalist possible.
I'll give you a perfect example. So a lot of times we get pushback from niche specialists that are like, I don't need this information. I've been writing pallet contractors for 20 years, right? Which makes sense. Completely understand, right? The next question is, what do you do when you get a large property? You do pallet manufacturing. What happens when you get a large property on the coast? How do you write that? Well, okay, right? So now you know how to write that. That's one. But for niche specialists, what's coming down the road is more like coverage analysis. So in the beginning of Q2, and we can get off, I don't want to spend all the time talking about Linqura, but
I don't think you really truly are. I think you're helping them understand the technology, and then it makes Linqura real.
Yeah, so like I look at this like, again, whether you're using Linqura or you're using a different tool.
Make sure that thing's not rolling against your, there you go. I don't want to make sure because there you go. There we go. Perfect.
Like, I just see us eating tabs. You're always going to need your AMS, right? You should probably have a tried and true CRM.
Eating tabs, okay.
Right? So it's like, I don't need, this, if I need 17 tabs to do what I need to do, right? This one's my ISO code generator. This is my workers' comp mod analyzer. Gotcha. This is, bam, there's all these different tools I use. We're just eating that functionality with the goal of making sure that every producer is a specialist on every account every time. You have all the information you need. You have all the understanding of risk profiles, etc. Mm-hmm. Everything you could possibly need is there for you at your fingertips. But long story short, eventually we'll have policy analysis where you can upload their current policies, upload the policies that you are that you want to propose to them, and literally get a broken down list of, here's the endorsements that your new policies have that the current ones don't. Here's the extra exclusions that, and now instead of, I had one guy who does trucking tell me that analyzing those policy forms takes him about 2.5 hours an account. And we can do it in about 5 minutes.
Wow.
Now that's not market ready. So I don't want to give everyone, I don't know when this will go out, but as of the reporting of it, it's not there. It should be early Q2. But like, I look at that back in my Rogue Risk days and I'm like, how can you not sell an account? Like, if I can come to you and go, not just like, trust me, the exclusions on this, I can literally hand you a report that says, my new, despite being the same premium or whatever, right? This is it is, right? I'm also giving you these 2 extra endorsements here. You have additional coverage limits on these 3 things. And this has 1 less exclusion than your current policy set, which you're getting as well.
So Mitch, not Mitch, sorry. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
But Ryan, tell me, how far are you out for you from that? We write nonprofits. Yeah, I want this shit.
Yes.
My nonprofits.
Q2, early Q2. So we're getting leads out first. That'll come out in middle of Q1, end of Q1, and then beginning of Q2 will be coverage of policy comparison and analysis. And so getting back to the broader AI conversation, right? So I'm describing some functionality here. The idea is with AI agents, which are bots that go outside of these AI systems. So you have the AI system itself and the data associated with it. And then you now have agents that can go out and actually perform functions and bring that back in. There is no reason we should ever be doing a transactional task ever again.
Yeah,
There's no reason.
I see where you went. I see where you went in the understanding that there'll only be 3 functions that we do. So yeah, that goes along something else. So okay, so that is really, really interesting. I see your passion for that. I know your love for agents. That's being able to lead them down the right path. I see that huge in prospecting, but then I also see that as it learns the definitions and understands what's going on. I mean, recently, I haven't tried it yet, but I'm gonna pay the $200 and I'm gonna try this operator.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to put it in my agency or anything. I just want to start using it to see how good it really truly is, right? There's people on TikTok or whatever showing like what it does. And I mean, like you can literally tell it like, hey, I want a flight from Fort Lauderdale to St. Louis. I like going in the afternoon, blah, 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 blah. And one of the things I've seen about it, it's extremely slow when it does it, but that's on purpose.
Yeah.
They want it to stop whenever it needs to do something. But I can see if it's able to do that accurately today. I mean, with the way this is moving, you can see where we just start eliminating tasks left and right.
Which is why everything that we created, and I think this will be more the norm. I don't think this is just us, but it's why we went this way. Everything just starts with name and address of business, right? Because from there, you should be able to set up, okay, what do I want to happen when I have a new prospect? I want to know all the relevant firmographic data. I want to know any signal changes. So that could be increases in growth over the last 3 years, increase of employees, additional locations added, etc. Right? I want you to then, if it qualifies for something that I want to write in my agency, I then want you to send out AI agents to all the relevant quoting platforms or carrier quoting platforms, run through, pull those quotes, get them done, pull them back in, compare them, and then tell me which one of these, based not just on premium and limits, but ultimately on policy language, is the best for this particular customer. And that should all be happening the minute you hit enter on name and address.
Right. And Ryan, the beauty of what you do and the way you talk is the beauty of Mitch Gibson. I can put Mitch in some tech and he understands the insurance side. And as I hear you, whenever you're talking to someone and they say, oh, I understand what agents do. And then they start talking about process and you're like, yeah, well, fucking don't. Yeah, it's that way. Hearing you talk about the process, the way it should flow, it's refreshing because I'm like, okay, wow, I can really see how this can really truly work because it's coming through you. How many other insurance people do you guys have working for Linqura?
So the founder was CTO for Travelers and then Chief Digital Officer for Prudential over 30 years.
Good. So we've got some.
Oh, yeah. So he actually holds the record for most policies transferred in the history of the industry. He's the one that did both the Aetna and the St. Paul mergers into Travelers. All the data that came out.
How old are these people? St. Paul into Travelers?
Yeah.
Fucking 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah, Mark, I think, is in his early 60s.
Okay.
Ewan is in his late 60s.
Okay. Right.
So this was like,
I was just picturing 2 young.
Yeah, no, which
I was.
And I'll tell you, this is another one of the things that attracted me to them because, like, I've done the 24-year-old. I'm gonna, I know everything, but I don't know shit. I'm gonna bank. Like, I'm kind of past that phase. So, hooking up with 2 entrepreneurs who were like at a phase where they're very mature, they've understood the market, they've experienced as much or more than me, right? They came at it from a different angle. I was like, how often is an insurtech started by guys that have been in the industry for 40 plus years? Not very often, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that mishmash of technical expertise, which like just in the market experience, and especially at that level, Prudential and Travelers are, nothing to shake a stick at. I mean,
right.
Big organizations.
Oh, bit, yeah.
Right? So like that part was very attractive to me. I felt like I was getting in with guys who understood the value. They understood what we were trying to do, full and complete respect for the industry, which is obviously paramount for me. I can't tolerate people who, like, want to diminish or say like insurance is broken. Like if you want to turn me off or piss me off, just, start talking like we don't know what we're doing. And it's like, that doesn't fly, right?
Yeah.
Iterative changes, improvements, innovation, efficiency, effectiveness, all of that all day long, right? That's every industry, particularly.
There's a lot of people making a lot of money for it to be broke.
Yeah. Like claims get paid. Like don't listen to, obviously everyone watching this knows,
Like you said, it could be improved
yes.
drastically, but it ain't broke.
But yeah, when your house burns down, guess what you get? A check in the mail.
That's true.
Right. At the end of the day, that's what it's about.
family's not-
Ryan, so how hard is parenting today?
Oh my God.
When you compare it to leadership, it's so similar, right? I've noticed that. I'm jealous that I had my kids. First of all, I love the fact that I had my kids at a young age, especially now with my wife and I.
Yeah.
But one of the areas that I regretted is the fact that I wasn't a leader in my 20s. I was learning how to be a leader, let alone learning how to be a parent. I think we're all learning how to be a parent as the kids get older. But it's amazing as I get older, I can now I have a different relationship with my kids, the way I talk to them, not just because they're 19 and 25, but I also listen to the way other people talk to their kids. And I'm like, man, if I try to take kids out of it and I say, if I was talking to my employee, I know that sounds goofy.
Yeah.
How would I do this, right? How would I go about this? Because it's not saying, hey, you're doing this wrong. It's about helping them see in themselves how they can do it right.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah. I have, I don't know if it's unique, but I have my own parenting style. I have treated them like real people. I think a mistake that I see a lot is we treat our kids like they're ducks, and they're not. They're just There's an experience. They're not ducks. And I think mostly because like I'm a terrible liar. I'm really bad at not sharing exactly what I'm thinking. Like I just couldn't, like they would be growing up with someone who wasn't their dad if I tried to do like the traditional parenting. Like I had them listening to Wu-Tang at 7. Right? Like mostly because I wanted to listen to it.
Right.
And I also heard the music that their friends listen to. And I was like, I'm going to teach my kids about good music before they get indoctrinated into this.
you should always start at Wu-Tang.
Yeah. I mean, that 100%. That's where we started. I think it was Wu-Tang, then Led Zeppelin. And then for a while, bounced back and forth between classic rock and 90s gangster rap discotomies. And
Just gotta know rap.
yeah. So
Gotta know that.
now I can say with certainty, my kids have good taste in music, at least according to me.
They playing sports?
Yeah, they're both into baseball. They both play basketball.
Are you coaching any?
I coach almost all of them because I just love being around it. But like, I think that the way I'm happy with the way that I've approached my relationship with kids. It's not always the easiest way because I think I put us in tough conversation situations a lot. Like my older son is incredibly talented. He's just like one of those people that, like, if you give him a basketball, he like picks up the basketball and starts dribbling between his legs, and you're like, how'd you know how to do that? And it just like made sense to him. Okay. But he also has this intense fear of success. So he's always operating at like 80% of his full capacity.
Gotcha.
Right? So it's been this very difficult thing where I was the exact opposite. I had very little natural skill, but I was 110% effort all the time. So it has been this really tough dynamic for him and I to align on because he can just do things that I couldn't do at his age, even when I was older. But then I was kind of further along in certain points in my career because the coaches could never deny that I was going as hard as I possibly could. And then for him sometimes, maybe because he's more talented naturally, it just looks like he's not trying as hard. So it's like, we have this very difficult conversation all the time. And my hope is that he'll come out of that, even though he doesn't love having those conversations and I don't love having them and about different things. Like, I think having those hard conversations is important. And that's the best advice that I could get. I mean, I'm so far from perfect parents. I'm close.
No one is.
But the advice I give is don't treat them like dummies. Like, they are real people. They're just inexperienced. And that they can handle tough information. They can. You just, maybe you got to massage it a little or present in the right way, right? I mean, they're inexperienced, but they can handle big topics. And I think the reason why this generation is so fucking soft, and like there's a clip from Andy Frisella that is out all the time. He says, you know, now is the easiest time to win ever in each break. And I think, and his point, I think you could argue both sides, but I do think he has a point. And the point is, most people are so scared of success. They're so caught up in status and their own, you know, whatever, you know, their life and what they deserve and all this stuff, that if you are able to think a little bigger and a little further down the road and be a little more willing to give up some of your personal comfort for value in the future, you will absolutely dominate. And you see it. Like, the difference even in the kids is like at 11, it's the soft ones whose mom still, you know, makes their bed for them and wipes their butt and ties their shoes at 11 years old and makes all their sandwiches for them and they're perfectly cut. Like, that kid gets on a sporting court or a field and has literally no idea how to handle failure. Like, they don't know that failure exists. They're like, what do you mean I can't play second base? I want to be a second baseman. It's like, no, you can't field a ground ball.
Right.
Like, sorry, we hit a bunch at you. You didn't field them. You can't play that position. And they're like, no, I want to play this position. This is where I want to play.
And dad and mom
and then dad and mom are like, he's a second baseman. That's where he wants to play. And it's like, are you not watching the ball right between his legs like I am?
But
like,
you got to give him a chance.
Yeah. And
no, we're trying to win games.
And it's like, you know, but that mentality, they don't know how to deal with that. And they don't then know how to, work through the shitty times to get to the good times, because they think they should have it immediately because that's what they want. And if we can teach our kids individually to deal with challenge, to, you know, when my kid sucks, I just say, you suck today. I said it to him yesterday. He gave a half-ass shitty effort on Sunday at his basketball game. He had 1 point and we lost by 2. And you know, we're talking about the game and I go, dude, you took 4 steps back today. You suck today. Now, great. We all get days off.
Right.
But like, we lost by 2. You had 1 point. You averaged 5.
No, sir.
If you're even half of your average, we win the game. So why did that happen? Well, the game was early and we had a game the day before and he'd played a lot of minutes because he's a point guard and like, you know, whatever, my legs are a little tired. And I'm like, okay, so your legs are a little tired and you were a little tired and that was worth taking an L for him? Right? That's literally what I said to him. And now he's soaking that in, you know, and my ex-wife used to hate when I'd have these conversations with him, but I'm like, he may not understand that conversation today, but that's the lesson that I was never taught, that I had to learn the hard way. And I want him to know that today, that like, maybe that doesn't manifest until he's 15, 16. And he goes on a 3-game streak where he's just cannot, you know, couldn't hit the broadside of the bat, right? With a baseball bat. Just, I want him to learn the resilience that when every other one of these snowflake, soft, wokey raised kids fades away and goes and cries on mama's breast, right? He's going to push through, figure out what's broken, and come out the better side better. And those are the kids that are going to dominate in the future. And
So one of the things I hear about you, Ryan, and I think there's 2 different types of people. And I think in business, you know, the book, it's not how, but who. It's who, but not how,
Yeah.
or something like that. A great book, fantastic book. In business, we can always delegate what our weaknesses are. In parenting, there's no delegation.
Yeah.
Right? It's you and your wife trying to figure it out, and maybe she's strong at that and you're not. But a lot of times, you're both figuring it out on your own. And I think that is one of the differences between business leadership and being parenting leadership. I've learned a lot for. I want to end with this.
the church helps with that, by the way.
The church helps. Yes. Okay. But what I want is as I listen to you, I start to realize that people usually I find are good in one or the other. A to L or M to Z. And I've always said, I get off building things. And I hear that in you. And I hear that's why Linqura is such an attractive, right? Not only it makes even more sense that you've got 2 mature owners. That makes more sense, even more. That gives you guidance. But I think that, what would you say about that? Who are you
if you would be honest with yourself on that front or that back of that or of that out.
I've said this for a long time. I'm a wartime general. I'm not a good peacetime general. Maybe I could mature into that role. Right. Not saying that I couldn't be good at it, but my natural proclivity is I want to go to war. Mm-hmm. Like I want, like, you know, I'm not saying I would have been a good warrior, but back in the day, and if that's what I would have been doing, right? You know, I've been marching with a bunch of assholes, and our feet would be, you know, whatever, and we'd be going fighting somebody. Because I had never. Part of this is what we've talked about, like, you know, ADHD, hyperactive bipolar, stuff like that. You and I have talked about that a lot.
Yep.
And some of it is that. Some of it is just the way that I was built. I just want to go and build and solve problems and knock down doors and add value and go. I hate accounting conversations. I hate culture conversations. I hate, not that I don't think those things are important. They're incredibly important.
Incredibly.
But that's not, like, I think that I've done a good job of culture in the places that I've been, but I think it's a byproduct of good hiring. I don't think I'm a good cultural leader, right? So how we built the culture at Rogue was based on the filters we put in place with the hires. And the people who we hired that didn't fit that culture were so immediately and obviously not good fits that a lot of them self-selected out pretty quickly, right? But I don't think that's because I was great at creating culture. I just knew the culture that we needed to get to where we had to be, and we just filtered really hard up front to get there. So, like, if you put me into a shitty culture, I might not be the guy, like, as a leader who could come in and talk nice to Tommy and, you know, I'm not that guy, because I'm going to come in and go,
You're not.
Be an adult, get along, get your job done, and if you don't like it, go work someplace else. Mm-hmm. Like, that's kind of my mentality. It's like, you need to be an adult. I can't handle adults that act like children. Like, I literally I have zero patience and time for that.
Knowing you as long as I do, I can see how that's irritable to you.
But I think the other side of it is, I'm aware of that. Like, I'm not going to put myself in a situation, you know, it's like, it's why the last place that I was before Linqura, I wasn't a great fit, because it was big business, bureaucracy. It was about getting along and building coalitions. And I was like, I don't want to do any of that. I can help with that problem, and that problem. Those other 7 problems, I can't help you at all. So probably not. But these 3, let's fucking go. Like, we don't need a group. I don't need your, I don't care about your opinion. Let's go, because we can solve these 3 problems. And that just doesn't work in those organizations, because everyone's got to be whatever. So, you know, that's why I will probably be trying to build companies, invest in companies, help people build their companies through consulting and speaking for the rest of my life, guys. I just think it's fascinating. I think I find, and I'll leave with this, and it's a big reason why I pivoted from talking about insurance on my podcast to talking about broader topics. It wasn't because I don't like insurance or wanted to get out of insurance. It was never either one of those things. It's that what I realized was being a leader, being successful, there is so much emotional, mental, psychological, philosophical shit that it takes to be successful over the long term. Mm-hmm. And those conversations weren't happening in an insurance specific podcast. Wow. So I wanted to bring in people from outside the industry and have them help with these other things.
It's been refreshing. It really, truly is.
And dude, you do such a good job, right? There's 3.
No, it really has been doing it. It's really refreshing to hear you coming from that. And then your solos are a lot better and stuff. So as we wrap up, let's give props where props is due. So you're the Chief Marketing Officer. Am I right about that?
Chief Growth Officer.
Chief Growth Officer, which in terms means sales and
marketing.
Okay. That's kind of a new term that you're hearing a lot. Yeah. And I don't think actual people realize.
It's a way that combine Chief Revenue Officer, which is usually over sales, and Chief Marketing Officer, which is usually over marketing, and put them into one position.
Fantastic. Yep. So Linqura, I want where do you see them going? They're a great data company. Yep. They sold one of their insurtechs. Thank God they did, because that allowed them to take no revenue for that first year. We don't realize how lucky we are for that. Do you see these guys as being somebody that is going to help Applied Vertafore get bought out? Or, I mean, anybody gets offered enough money, right?
Yeah.
But do these guys, how do they talk?
I could see down the road some large organization, either a CRM or an agency management system, wanting to take what we have, bringing it in-house, and then being able to deploy it over their agency plan. I could see that. I could see that happening. I think in the meantime, like, while people can go to Linqura.com today, that's Linqura.com, and they can subscribe and use the industry model, and that's great. Where I really see our value to the industry is almost being like the intel inside to these large enterprises like E&S brokers, roll-ups, networks, carriers, who need to present their information in a much more personalized, customized, tailored way versus this kind of like PDF industry view that we've used for so long, right? It's too slow, and you can't change the information in real time. So, you know what I mean? Like,
A lot of products are one or the other, but this works great for carriers and the agents and the brokers.
so what you're going to see down the road from us is we are most likely going to rebrand the agent tool to something that isn't Linqura, because it is very confusing today, right? Like, who do you work with? Well, we work with these enterprises. We also have this product that the market has direct access to. It's very confusing.
Right.
So we will, when it happens, I'm not sure, but we will most likely rebrand the Copilot tool, the sales assistant tool, to a name that is specific to that tool.
Okay.
And it's all run off the same technology in the back end. That will never change, but just so people have a better idea, like, you'll probably see that coming, but yeah, it's Linqura to that.
Okay. Well, fantastic, Ryan. I really greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much, man. You've been a longtime friend.
Yeah.
I don't know other people in the industry who have been friends with someone for 15 years.
Yeah.
Really think about
Yeah.
that. Like, I know a lot of people, and I think some people can be like, oh, yeah, well, I know Jim over there. We've been in the business 35 years. Yeah, but like, do you know Jim's wife? Do you know Jim's kids, right? And do you actually know Jim? Just not in an insurance way.
Yeah.
And I think you and I have been there. And there's been times where we've talked every week.
Yep.
There's been times where we haven't almost talked for a whole year, especially when you were head down with road risk. I mean, you couldn't do
I didn't talk to any of
you didn't talk to anybody. You asked it to be. And I didn't get any to the master class. So you have a class that you've created on closing, which I think is freaking awesome.
Yes.
So we're going to have to do this again because I want to talk about that. So loyal listeners, I'll bring them back. I also want to talk about this thing with Chris Paradiso, how he purchased that.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot more to come back to. So when we do a part 2 here in the next week, 2 weeks, 2 months, that's what we'll hit on that. But man, thanks.
Dude,
very much.
you know this. I love you to death. I'm so incredibly proud of like your journey over time, the businesses you've created, how you've never, ever let anybody tell you that you couldn't do something. And it's dude, you have some incredibly admirable traits, and I'm just proud of where you've gotten to, man.
Yeah, it's the people that I've hired that are better than me. So anyway, loyal listeners, you know what I do because I do it for you. Tell me your thoughts and tell me your ideas, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. This has been Cass. This is Hanley. We are out.